everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily and this is the Astral Library, and yes, it is Christmas time, it is Christmas season. I don't care that it's not Thanksgiving yet, who cares? It is Christmas season. I got the tree up, I got the pretty lights on, I got the decor up, we're here, we're living, and I'm loving it, okay? But that's not the topic of today's video. Today's topic is Danmei novels. Welcome to another beginner's guide, and this is a long-awaited and actually requested guide to Danmei novels. I'm sure you noticed it a little bit in my voice. I am just getting over a cold, so that has delayed this video a teensy tiny bit, but hopefully it's still out on time. If not, oh well, it's here now. I hope you're enjoying it. Hey, love to see you. But before we dive straight in, I wanted to actually give you a little bit of definition of like, what is a Danmei novel? Because if you clicked on it, you're obviously interested in Danmei novels, or if you clicked on it because you just love me, first off, hey boo, love you, thank you. So a Danmei novel is actually a Chinese novel genre that focuses on romantic relationships between two men, usually targeted towards a female audience, but is not necessarily strictly for female audiences. Because of the censorship going on in China, these works are often a murky legality issue, so a lot of these authors actually write under pen names and usually are published online as web novels. Luckily here in the US, we don't have those same censorship laws yet, but we do have 7 Seas Publishing, who is translated and traditionally published these works for us to enjoy today, and they've been publishing them in droves, which is great for me and for other fellow fans who love Danmei novels. But Danmei can be a very intimidating space because there's just a lot out there being not only published, but also Chinese novels have a very different story structure than we are used to here in the US and usually in Western fiction in general. So I wanted to make a guide of like, how do you like bridge into Danmei and what works or maybe a good place for you to start based on your current reading taste and what you have already encountered in terms of different genres. So that's what this guide is. I hope you find something interesting. I hope this demystifies and make it a little less scary. So let's go ahead and dive straight in with my recommendation. All right, to begin with the recommendations, I want to pick one that is very much aligned, I would think, to a lot of popular genres going on right now, and that is the isekai genre, which if you're an anime fan, you know what an isekai is because it is inescapable at this point in time. But for those of you who don't know, isekai is essentially when you have a normal person like you or I that gets transported into a world of a video game, of a book or a novel, etc., etc. We see a ton of examples of this in anime, but also it's really popular in webtoons. If you're reading that, like the villainous genres is often a form of an isekai genre. And so the very first Danmei I have is actually an isekai Danmei, and that is The Scum Villain Self-Saving System by Mojang Tangshu, or MXTX as she is lovingly referred to as. So this is, like I said, an isekai where we have our main character Shen Yuan, who is sort of a fan of this novel called Proud Immortal Demon Wei, and he has some issues with just how the story went. He was kind of ranting and complaining, and one day he wakes up inside the body of Shen Qiu, the cruel but beautiful teacher of the main protagonist, who essentially tortures the poor boy and inevitably gets killed by him later on in the story. And Shen Yuan is, you know, as everyone does, freaking out a little bit because he has just entered into a character's life who is essentially doomed, and he does not want to share the same fate. So as the new Shen Qiu, Shen Yuan must get into the good graces of the main character, Liu Binghe, who admires his teacher a lot, but also has a bit of a darker side. And to top it all off, Shen Yuan is not allowed to freely act within this world as he pleases. He is beholden to the scum villain system, or the essential game system that is controlling this world and actually limiting his actions to what he can or cannot do. This is a really fun volume to get into. It is MXTX's first work, so it's a little younger, but I think because of that is a lot easier and a little less complex than some of their other series. And like I said, if you are familiar with the isekai genre, this is very much reminiscent of that. It has all this familiar cues, got these similar type of humor where we're having a little bit of a harem going on. There is definitely explicit romance in this. Overall, it's just a really fun and sweet story, and it's only 3 volumes long, so it is not too much of a commitment because these books tend to be pretty short. This book in itself is under 300 pages, just under, at $3.91, and they're beautiful editions. Like, look at the artwork. Absolutely stunning. A really, really easy way to get into Danmei, especially if you are already familiar with the anime genre. This will give you a lot of those similarities to kind of like grasp onto and to hold on to as you're getting into the traditional Chinese format for storytelling. Also on the shorter side and a little more familiar of Western genres, we have a paranormal element, and that is Guardian by Priest. So this is a 3-volume series that follows our 2 main characters. Our first main character is Zhao Yulan, who is a detective and the head of the Ministry of Public Security, which is essentially a department that deals with the paranormal. And Zhao Yulan must go out and investigate not only what are these paranormal events, but also put a stop to them while keeping the general populace unaware of everything supernatural going on in the world. Zhao Yulan is usually pretty kicked back. He's a bit of a flirt, and he just kind of sucks at life. Like, he's a slob, he's lonely, and he actually can't get a date as much as he flirts with everyone. But one day while he's on a case, he encounters our second main character, Shen Wei, who is a college professor at a university where an incident was occurring. Zhao Yulan is immediately captivated by Shen Wei and just flirts with him and tries to get his attention, but Shen Wei is kind of standoffish and really reserved and doesn't really want to have anything to do with Zhao Yulan. But as the story progresses, we see them beginning to get closer and closer, and we find out that maybe Shen Wei isn't as put off by Zhao Yulan as it first appears, and in fact there may be some hidden attraction between them. This is a very, very fun story. It is, like I said, it's only 3 volumes long. I've devoured this first novel. I'm really excited to continue on with the rest of the series, especially because it is very reminiscent of that paranormal elements that I really do love in paranormal romances, because we get a little bit of the case element, we get the humor with the side characters fucking shit up. Like, we have a new intern who just gets introduced to this world, and he's like, what the hell is going on? How do I do all these things? How am I supposed to have this normal job? I was just a loser before, and now there's monsters. And we have this seemingly cool and collected detective who actually is just a mess, cannot keep his life together. And then Shen Wei, our calm and collected person, is actually also a mess. So it's just about 2 gay disasters falling in love with each other and somehow trying to pretend like they are not, in fact, gay disasters, but they very much are. And the humor in this was really, really well done. And I think the perfect balance between serious and spooky while also being hilarious and funny and kind of lighthearted. Overall, I would say a great recommendation. And great thing about both this and Scum Villains is that they are both completed series. So all 3 books are out for each of these, so you can pick them up and finish them. Maybe you're like, okay, Emily, I don't need a shorter work. I want to really sink into something. I want something that's longer. I want something that's a little bit more complex. I want something that is really interesting. Okay, I'm gonna give you a bit of a medium, okay? We're gonna go with something that is longer than the other 2, but is not quite as long as it can get. And for that, I have Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, or Modao Zushi, also by MXTX. I promise this is not an MXTX fan list, but it is pretty close because she is the queen of Danmei. I've been reading this series on my channel, so maybe you know a little bit about it, maybe you don't. But Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation follows our main character, Wei Wuxian, who, for all intents and purposes, is a necromancer. And more than that, he invents necromancy, and it is very much frowned down upon. And so years and years ago, when he first created necromancy, people were not a fan and eventually turned on Wei Wuxian and eventually killed him. Some 20 years later, Wei Wuxian is reincarnated into a body of a young man who sacrificed his life so Wei Wuxian can get revenge for him. And as Wei Wuxian is trying to investigate who he's getting revenge on and what is going on, he is encountering more and more mysteries that remind him of things going wrong in his original timeline. And as he starts investigating to figure out what the hell is going on, why am I here, and why is history repeating itself, he is encountering people from his past who may or may not recognize him. And so not only must Wei Wuxian uncover this ongoing conspiracy surrounding his reincarnation, but also figure out the larger plot going on that is threatening to throw the world into chaos once more. And to make matters more complicated, he is doing that side by side with his old friend Lan Wangji, who may or may not have been both his best friend and his potential worst enemy. I love this series so much. This is a book that I'm reading for the first time, and yet I am engaging with the story for the second time, because the one great thing about Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation is that there is a C-drama on Netflix that you can watch alongside this that will help kind of give you a clear idea of like what is going on in this book. Because this is a book that goes back and forth in time. This is where we get flashbacks when characters are introduced and when events become relevant, and then immediately goes back to the present timeline, which is really interesting, and it does a great job of building suspense. But again, these are really great because there are 5 volumes in this series, again, all published, all with these gorgeous covers and included art in these. I would show you the art in them, but I cannot. And that last book is the payoff, if you know what I mean. Continuing on with our long recommendations, we're gonna do another non-MXTX recommendation, and for that I have The Husky and His White Cat Shizen by Robao Bunchiro, or Meat Bun. So this is a estimated 9-volume series. You heard me right, 9 volumes. There's gonna be 9 books in this series, and they are not thin. They are a chunky monkey. This book in itself totals at 479 pages, so damn near 480 pages in just the first volumes. This is a very long series, definitely something you could sink your teeth into. The Husky and His White Cat Shizen, or as lovingly known as Arha, follows our main character Mo-ran, who in his past life was actually a very cruel and unjust tyrant that killed everyone that got in his way and actually ended up as the leader of the world who everyone wanted to conspire against and kill. And at the peak of his life, after he has done everything, after he's killed all his enemies, he finds himself immensely bored. He is not enjoying life whatsoever, and on the day that people are about to rebel and come and kill him, he decides to take his own life anyways because there's nothing else he wants from this world. Unbeknownst to him, after he falls unconscious, he wakes up in his younger body, and he is still a student under his cruel teacher Chu Waning. And so Mo-ran decides he is going to turn a new leaf. He is going to be a better person, but he still has to deal with Chu Waning, who in his past life tried to kill him and he inevitably killed. So now Mo-ran must survive Chu Waning one more time, while also find out that not everything was as it seemed in his past life, and what he thought was truth was actually a malicious lie made up by someone else. This first book is deceiving because when I first read it, I actually didn't like it. And I was a little turned off by Mo-ran as a character because he's kind of crude. I was really confused how him and Chu Waning were going to mend their relationship in any way because the romance is supposed to be between Mo-ran and Chu Waning. And I was unsure of how this is going to develop. But Meat Bun is such a complex storyteller in that the payoff comes much later in this series, where we are really dealing with the tumultuous relationship between Chu Waning and Mo-ran, who are constantly hurting each other while also not seeing the truth of each other's actions. This is a series that is by far sexier than MXTX. There is more humor, and there is just more to kind of sink your teeth into because of the length of these volumes. These are chunky volumes, and the story itself is complex that is able to unfold on these pages. Chinese storytelling really pays attention to the detail, which I don't think is something that is always prevalent in Western storytelling. These small details that you encounter in this novel are all important. They will have a payoff later down. Maybe not in the story, the first book itself, but in book 3 or 4, that small detail you thought, oh, it means nothing, means a lot more than you think. But there are, I believe, 7 volumes currently out, and at this length, you're going to have plenty to read until that last volume comes out. Now, this is my favorite one. This is the one, if you read any series from this list, I want you to read this one because I need more people to talk about the series, okay? This is another MXTX. It's the last MXTX on this list, I promise. It's another really long series with 8 volumes, and that is Heaven Official's Blessing by, again, MXTX. First off, just look at the colors. Honestly, look at the beautifulness of this cover. Every cover is of that gorgeous quality. I love it. If you like pining, if you like a slow burn romance, if you love political intrigue and multi-connected stories, this is the series for you, okay? Heaven Official's Blessing follows our main character, Xie Yulan, who is actually a god, but he is not any ordinary god. He is a disgraced god that has actually been cast down from heaven twice. The novel picks up at the end of his second banishment, where he has actually managed to atone and rise up to heaven once more into true godhood. However, the last time Xie Yulan was a god, he was not very much liked. In fact, he was known as a god of misfortune. And more than that, he made many an enemy in heaven, some of which who would rather see him and never rise to a godhood again. Luckily, Shay-lan is an unbothered king, and all he wants to do is to lay low in his little own rundown shrine and just be happy and mind his own business. Except when he rose to godhood one more time, he actually created a bit of a mess and ruined some buildings and almost killed one of the gods. And so he has a bit of debt to clear up. And so to pay off his debt, he ends up taking a few cases to solve some of the paranormal experiences going on in the mortal realm. But as he's going to investigate that, he captures the attention of Hua Chang, one of the 3 ghost kings of the world. And rumor has it that Hua Chang is the biggest threat to gods, and historically has been known to kill more than 30 gods who crossed him in some way. And now he has set his sights on Shay-lan. That is all I could tell you from this story, because this is a series that gets complex. More so than I believe than Arha. Heaven Official's Blessing is a story that has stories within stories within stories that all connect to this larger plot of what is going on, not only in heaven, but in hell and amongst the mortals. And more than that, all connecting to Shay-lan and his past, not only in his first godhood, but also in his banishments. I love every character in this series. I love every story. I love every little side mission. I love the banter. I think the fan fiction for this world is amazing. Everything about Heaven Official's Blessing is peak. I think this is the one series everyone should read and give a chance if they're interested in Danmei, because it's just so well done. It's so beautiful. This is a series that does not have any spice. So if you're not a fan of spice and like explicit sex scenes, this has none. And I don't care. I don't need that explicit spice to make the romance between Shay-lan and Hua Chang any more amazing, because it is so perfect. The slow build towards it, the tension between them, the angst and pining. There's so much pining in this series. It's so good. I cannot sing the praises of this series enough. And if you're a person who really likes to see a genuine relationship build over the course of multiple books, this is what you need to pick up. This is the one you want to try. And if you're someone who loves action and, again, political intrigue and really complex puzzling plots, this is the one you want to pick up. If you love really intricate storylines and having to pay attention to the smallest detail for a large payoff, this is the book you want to pick up. If you want really complex villains with interesting motivations for why they're doing, this is the one you want to pick up. This has it all. Everything MXTX wrote, I think just every good thing I've loved in other MXTX books is included in this, and she just does it so much better. 100% worth your time. It is worth every investment. There is not a single book in this 8-volume series that I found myself bored in. And even in these moments where we found ourselves taken out of our present timeline and thrown into the past timeline, I still was really interested in what is going on. And again, they all have purpose. So it didn't feel like I'm just here learning some background information for no other apparent reason than just to learn. It all comes up. It is so well done. This is an author who took their notes and knew what was going on to tie into a really great and complex story. So again, if you read any book on this list, this is the one you should definitely pick up. All right, and the last recommendation I have for you is actually not one I've read personally, but I was talking to a friend about making this list and they said, Emily, you have to include this book. It is perfect, especially for anyone who loves dark romance. So if you're a dark romance person, come right up. I have a Danmei just for you. And that Danmei is Kin Porsche. This is actually a Thai novel, so it is not a Chinese novel, but it follows a lot of the similar storytelling structure that we find in like Chinese Danmei novels. So I have the synopsis right here since I have never read this, so I'm gonna go ahead and read this to you, and we'll go ahead and talk a little about it, and I'll share my little notes of what my friend said I should tell you guys about this. Ever since the death of his parents, Porsche's life has been a balancing act between attending college and bartending to support his younger brother and pay off his deadbeat uncle's gambling debt. When he witnesses a gang of thugs attacking a handsome young man in the alley behind his bar, he's reluctant to intervene until he's offered 50,000 baht to help the stranger escape. The stranger is a known Kin, the second son of a notorious crime family. Impressed with Borsch's fighting skills, Kin makes a proposition. If Borsch agrees to become his personal bodyguard, his debts will be absolved. Borsch doesn't want any trouble, especially not the kind of trouble Kin deals in, but Kin always gets what he wants. romance. So, dark romance girlies, if you love like a mafia romance and a gang romance, Kin Porsche is for you, okay? This is peak mafia where we have our bodyguard being the love interest to our gang leader. It is a bit of a twist on the traditional trope where usually we have the big protective gang member offering protection to the in-debt person, but now we have the in-debt person who has to actually be the muscle to the gang member. From what my friend tells me, this series is super duper spicy. It is super duper funny, but also a really sweet romance between Kin and Porsche. I will be picking this one up myself, so we could read this together. We could have a little bit of a Danmei book club going on, a little read along, because you know what, that sounded really interesting to me, and I'm not usually a dark romance girly, but something about the twist on the mafia romance has got me just a little bit intrigued. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope this demystified Danmei just a little bit, and I hope you are actually interested in one of these works, because I think it's amazing that Danmei is making such a huge impact on the current publishing industry, because we're seeing more and more diversity in reading, and not only in different types of storytelling, because this is, again, very unlike Western storytelling. It's so interesting to see the difference between the two and to see Chinese storytelling values over Western storytelling. It's a great way to, again, just to easily diversify your reading, because you're reading from BIPOC authors first and foremost, but also really engaging with Eastern thinking and Eastern mythology, which is heavily baked into Danmei novels. So I hope you find one. I hope you pick one up. I hope it's a Heaven Official's blessing, but if not, I hope you pick up something else. And if you've read any of these books, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you've read. Let me know what you're most interested in. I love hearing from you guys. And again, I hope this really helped, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!